Okay, welcome everybody. We have a Routable webinar today, and I will leave the explanations all up to David, our awesome Routable rep that we have here. So we will just move on here. I'll just do a very brief introduction of myself. For those of you who don't know me, I'm Tanya Hiltz, founder of Cloud Bookkeeping Services and Tanya's Bookkeepers Bootcamp. A little bit about myself, and I'm not going to go through all of this. You guys, if you've been on multiple webinars, you've seen it. If you're new, I'm just going to go through the most recent. I was given the great honor of being the actual first IPBC 2019 Professional Leader of the Year, which IPBC stands for the Institute of Professional Bookkeepers of Canada. So that's our national bookkeeping association up here. Also, our Bookkeepers Bootcamp qualified for continuing education credits in 2018, which was a really big deal for that. We are Intuit's Global Firm of the Future for 2018 and continuing because there are no more Firm of the Future contests. So we're the rating champs, which is kind of cool, and Canadian runners-up for 2017. And I was found to be one of Practice Ignition's top 50 women in accounting globally for 2018. So there's some more accolades there, but as I say, you guys can read them. And that's it for my slides. So I'm just going to pop out of my slides. And David, you can take over and share your screen. And I will just mute myself and pop in just as needed.
Yeah, fantastic. Again, Tanya, thanks for having us on. We're thrilled to connect more with your community. For those folks who are just joining us, Tanya and I actually had the chance to originally meet at QB Connect in San Jose last year. She was doing a live stream very similar to this and walked by. I was able to get wrangled in and connect with the group. So for those of you who have never heard about Routable, just the quick overview, you can think of us as a Bill.com alternative. So if you have clients that you're supporting on the accounts payable side specifically, that's really the special solution that we're really trying to come along as. And it's more so for folks who are growing their AP. So if you have clients that are processing, say, fewer than 30 to 50 bills a month and really have no plans to increase that, that's not our core focus right now. Brief context and background about Routable. We've been around for about 3 years, and it came to be really as our two co-founders, Tom and Omri, they're engineers by background. They actually built in-house AP solutions at former companies that they were working at as those companies were scaling. And they realized on their own, this is a systemic problem for businesses and for clients that you're supporting. As the business grows, they found thematically and as a trend, they had to keep switching solutions, which created a lot of friction, as you can imagine. So they were catching up jokingly over hummus one day back in Israel, and they realized, wait, you built that in-house? I built the same thing. We should probably talk about this and explore it. So to their credit, before they started writing one line of code, they interviewed about 300 businesses all across the United States to really go so deep in the accounting world to really unpack the problem and its complexity. Now, as someone who does not have a formal accounting background, learning about business payments, I thought, how difficult can it be? You're literally just paying a bill. Well, as everyone here knows, it can be quite difficult and quite complex. So the thoroughness and the comprehension of the problem really gives us that leg up, because the product, as y'all are going to see today, is driven directly from industry feedback, from folks like yourselves who have told our founders, this is what we want, this is what's painful, this is what's problematic, this is what slows us down. And we say, great, that's what we're going to be prioritizing. So for the most part, AP is really where the bulk of the problems have existed. We do also have the accounts receivable side. However, we're not going to be featuring that today. So a couple of questions that typically come up is, how are you different than Bill.com? So for those folks who have used Bill.com, it's wonderful because it introduces you to cloud accounting and really getting more support out there. So a couple of features that we really like to focus on in terms of our differences that we prioritize as a company. And all this we'll be showing here visually in just a moment. So the first is we have what we call a real-time sync. So when you're updating the bill either in Routable or in QuickBooks Online or Xero, so we have integrations with both of those, it's a real-time sync. So you don't have to worry about manually resyncing it, waiting 15 minutes for the data to push over. So if you figure you're processing 50, 500, thousands of bills a month, that ends up saving quite a bit of time, which is really for the folks who we're trying to serve there. The second element, and this is direct credit to our product development team, it is amazingly user-friendly and highly intuitive. So if you have already been trained on Xero or QBO and you've coded a bill in there, you'll actually already know how to use most of Routable. So we're leveraging a lot of the industry training directly into our app. The third element comes from a frustration from the industry about poor technical support from other providers out there. They have a question about something or they ran into an issue and they weren't able to get it resolved in a timely fashion. So within Routable, we actually have in-app on-demand tech support. So we really want to make sure that we provide the best solution on the market, not necessarily the cheapest solution. We're really looking to address the entirety of the problem as it stands. And then lastly, for the one that we'll cover today, is scalability. So our engineers and co-founders, they recognize some businesses today, they'll be processing 50 bills a month. And a couple quarters from now, it could be 500 bills a month and 5,000 bills in the future. And they're really scaling up and to the right. We want to be orchestrating Routable into the tech stack as evergreen software. That this is the foundation that not only clients can build their software on top of, but for the accounting departments, they can rely on Routable to carry them all the way through rather than anticipating a future migration. So quick overview about the company. Hopefully that can catch everyone up to speed. Before I dive into the demo, do we have any questions from the folks here today? Okay, fantastic. Let me jump into a screen share here. So Tanya, might need to lean on you here. I'm not seeing the, oh, there we go.
A green box with the arrow at the bottom.
Perfect. Desktop 3. All right, and is the Routable platform showing up well for everybody? Wonderful. So when you first log in, this is your inbox, and it's specifically for your payables inbox. So all of these bills that we're looking at here were either manually uploaded from your desktop. So imagine the world where a vendor hands you a physical bill. Some of them still do that. You scan it, you upload it, and then you have to drag it in. So you just click upload bills, and you can bring it from your desktop quite easily. The second method is every client receives a dedicated Routable email inbox, and you can access that here. So if we forward emails into this address, it gets pulled in just like this one. So a sample bill from an email. The second significant workflow that we'll also cover is the ability to reach in and over to the ledger. So as we see down here, we're integrated live right now with QBO. If we're integrated with Xero, which we'll show in a little bit, it'll show that the Xero connection is live. So in some cases, we understand as the complexity of AP ever grows, some folks like to leverage software like Receipt Bank or HubDoc to automatically codify the bill and then push it over to the ledger and push it over to Routable. So that's what we call a pass-through integration. So rather than going from the Receipt Bank or HubDoc directly into Routable, it actually goes to the ledger, which we really like to position as the anchor of your software and make sure that's the dedicated source of truth. So with those bills being pushed through, you can still leverage Routable for things like approvals, which is really important for certain clients, or communication tracking. So rather than emailing back and forth or calling your client or texting them, hey, are we good to move this forward? And then all that communication is fragmented. In a second, you're going to see our communication channel per bill is really nicely organized to increase not only the accountability, but the transparency amongst your team. So to see those bills, for example, and these would be all the ones that were generated from the QBO side, we click this drop-down menu, select payment. If I know the vendor offhand, I can type it in here. However, if I just want to see all the bills living on QBO, I'll select this drop-down menu. And this is happening in real time. So if I hop over to QBO and create a bill, it'll push over in real time. This gavel icon means that this specific bill triggered the approval workflow. So for this specific demo account, my company is FedEx, and I set the threshold at $1,000. So what that tells me is anything over than $1,000, I'm going to need the client to approve it. Anything under that, the client has expressed the endorsement, I can just go ahead and get that paid. So we can see we have a few of each. One frustrating part that we've heard during our user research from Bill.com users is source documentation does not push or pull over between the platforms. And it creates additional work because then you have to email those documents to the client for additional approval, or you have to download and move over, which creates just more friction on your end. So we wanted to make sure that we resolve that when we initially rolled this out. So if we go ahead and select this last one here, So we're going to be paying the vendor Google for $2,900. We have the ability to import any files. So if those files are living in QBO, Routable can reach over, pull those over, so that way when the client goes to approve it, they actually have all the necessary information so that they know what they're approving. All right, scrolling down here, we can now select how we're paying. So for the default, what we have today is ACH and check. I'm going to show you those specific breakdowns in the second workflow in just a moment. In this specific workflow, we have it set up to automatically select ACH and automatically get processed over in 2 to 3 days. So we'll go ahead and select our Malvern bank account. A key difference here is on the client's bank feed and on the vendor's bank feed, it'll show each other, meaning Routable will not be showing up on that bank feed for this transaction. So when the funds are extracted from your bank account on the client side, they transfer directly to the vendor account. So they don't go from client to Routable, Routable to vendor. It just provides a direct flow there. All right, so now for scheduling. By default, it sets it for today. In some cases, the bookkeeper likes to batch them together so we can say in a future date and schedule it for, say, the third Friday of the month. Alternatively, if you have a client where the AR seems to be in a little bit of a flux and you're not quite sure if you have the green light, you can uncheck this and it'll push the bill into what we call a ready to send status. In essence, this bill is pushed through the approval workflow and then sits tight until you have the green light from the client. So we'll go ahead and set it on for today, just so you can see the speed of payment processing. And then this final piece, we're going to go ahead and select Michelle as the client for the approval process. So now when I click approval, we're updating the Routable side, and then we're also updating your client via an email notification. So the center modal that we're seeing here, you can think of this as your digital paper trail, the who did what, when, why, etc. We really encourage folks to use this for all notes and communication with your team. So if I want to leave a note to my team that does not get sent out to the vendor, I can just click on the note field and say urgent. For all of you emoji users, we love them as well. We try to use them whenever possible. So we support that on Routable. So that note is now here. It's clear. It has the avatar, the name, everything is timestamped. So that way, months from now, if you ever need to audit this transaction, it's really clear who touched the bill at which point. So the client in this case would then receive this email. Notice up here, it's Routable branded. So this email is Routable branded because it's internally facing. It's within the closed system. So the client can see at a glance who we're paying, how much we're paying, and then if they click into this link, it'll take them directly to this payable. And then down here, they have access to that source document, which by the way, we pulled in from the QBO side. So the client at a glance can see, great, yep, that looks good to me. They'll leave a note for the team. And now for the approval process, they click approve. They can see the current status over in QBO. And now when they click approve, a few things are happening. We're updating the Routable side, and in real time, we're also updating the QBO side. So if we hop over to QBO, here's the bill that was created. And now we can see that it's been paid. So literally within about a second, Routable pushes over that information. The payment record has been applied, and the amount has been zeroed out. And here, just do a quick page refresh, we can see that the Routable side has also updated these new milestones. So that way everyone else on the team knows exactly where this bill is at. And the final piece of this specific workflow is what the vendor receives. The problems that we're trying to eliminate on the vendor side is they should never be reaching out to your team asking questions like, when am I getting paid? What am I getting paid for? Why is this company showing up on my bank feed? All of that should be resolved in this workflow. So again, client received a Routable branded email, whereas your vendor will receive a white labeled email. So this would be coming from your client. It would have your client's logo, their colors, their information about the company. The vendor can see how much they're getting paid, when they should actually expect it to hit their bank account, and what they're getting paid for. So attaching the original invoice that they sent over, so it provides immediate clarity and transparency for all sides. So that way, again, they don't have to reach back out to get that information from your team. So that's the simple workflow reaching over to the ledger. Other teams want the ability to manually codify the bill through Routable. And so that'll be the second workflow that we illustrate today. So if we hop back to the inbox, we can see, all right, we received a sample bill here in the email. We click into it. We automatically see the PDF that was attached. Scroll down, see all the details here. Say, great. All right, so we'll go ahead and start typing in Google. And because we paid them before, they're automatically getting pre-populated. One problem that we also wanted to address is around vendor management. That it should be easy to pay folks. It should not be this arduous, cumbersome, time-consuming problem. We want to be able to do quick onboarding on the fly. So great, we'll go ahead and select Google, grab the invoice number. And for the QBO users out there, this portion should look awfully familiar. And the reason is we're extracting the table setup from QBO and putting it right in Routable. So that way, if you're used to codifying a bill in QBO, you'll already know how to use Routable. And we do support both the category details and the item details, full sync integration on that. So our category, we'll just say cost of goods sold. Grab this amount, designate the class, and jump down here. So the memo, this is internal facing. So this would be something that your client would see at a glance. If I have additional files that I want to attach in this, these will also automatically get pushed over to QBO. So again, it works both ways, just to make sure that every system is up to speed. Otherwise, this original PDF up here, along with this email body, both of those documents will automatically get pushed over to QBO. And down here, notice how this portion looks a little bit different than what we saw before. This is where we get a little bit more functionality and optionality for the payment processing. So I now have the ability to select either ACH or check. And within the ACH option, I have 4 different speeds. So for some cases, and this again is driven directly from industry feedback, Routable customers who said, hey, Routable, I really need to be able to pay faster. So in December, we rolled out the ability for our clients to pay next day and same day, which you can see here. So before I click this, I want you to focus on this button right here to see how it's going to change. So when I select the same day payment, it now jumps over to what we call the balance. So this is a pre-funded Routable account where you're able to proactively deposit funds that are earmarked for AP, and that enables us to move the money literally same day. So if this bill is processed by 10 a.m. PST, hits the vendor's bank account by end of day. And this is part of our secret sauce that enables us to do that. For the most part though, what we found is folks are totally fine with the expedited 2 to 3 business days, and this is mainly for the cost. Notice how we put the cost right there. We try to be very transparent about how we work. Now on the check side, we select that. We have a few options here as well. By default, we select standard, so it's 7 to 10 business days. Usually what we see is it's faster. However, we like to set generous expectations just to be accommodating there. Otherwise, we do have the ability to set it next day. As you can see, this has a nice price tag to it. We do not encourage folks to use that unless you're in an absolute pinch. All right, so for this, we'll go and select ACH. We're fine with 2 to 3 business days. All right, so for Google, they have a few different bank accounts on file, understandably. We can easily add a bank account on behalf of the vendor or invite the vendor to update their bank account. Aggregated feedback that we've received, some bookkeepers are totally fine updating vendor bank info. Other bookkeepers will say, I won't touch with a 10-foot pole. Say that's totally fine. We support both workflows. We want to give you the optionality. I'll just show you quickly how you would do it. So I'll grab a spoofing routing number. So let's say that in this example, the vendor said, hey, David, here's the new updated banking info. Please update your file. Great. So we'll click add bank account, indicate that it's a checking account, type in the routing and account information. We quickly verify, yep, this is a Wells Fargo account, and then we can add the bank account. Literally, that's it. And now we can use that bank account for processing moving forward, which means there's no downtime. Your vendor can now get paid in the timely fashion that you want. And this part, very similar to the flow that we just saw. So we'll set it for today. And again, select Michelle as the approver. And the rest of the flow will mirror exactly what we just modeled in the previous workflow. So we can see that needs approval. Source documents are down here. However, before I approve this, notice this is a bill that we codified from Routable and we pushed it over to QBO. So let's hop to QBO and see how quickly that information pushed over. And here's that bill that we just created a few seconds ago. So key thing to highlight, there was no manual sync, there's no manual reintegration. All that information is getting pushed over in real time. And down here, we can see that those source documents also pushed over with the bill creation as well. So when we go and approve this, it'll get initiated and that bill will be processed today, hitting the bank account for the vendor within 2 to 3 days. So let's hop back over to QBO, quick page refresh. And look at that, the bill has been zeroed out. So that type of real-time sync just really enables our community to move so much faster because we understand you have a lot of things on your plate. We want to help you focus on the majors while we take care of the minor items. And that's probably the gist of it for the QBO integration. Just to quickly show the difference on Xero, if we have any Xero users out there. So let's log into our Xero connection. So notice down here now says Xero connected. So everything else will be exactly the same here. The main difference, so if we click into, let's say this one that still needs approval, is this portion right here. And this is completely on the architecture of how Xero has been created as software. So every bill in Xero has a unique extension, the URL, that website at the top. So that enables us on the Routable side to provide a direct hyperlink to that bill as soon as it's created. So if we click this, it'll now take us directly to that bill in Xero rather than having to log in, search it, and then find it. It's just one of those small ways that we were able to leverage our connection and integration with them. Otherwise, in essence, everything else is the same. So we have fantastic integrations, that real-time sync, really enabling our folks to move as quickly as they need to. And that, in essence, is the AP workflow, showing the two different sides of how to either create it from Routable or process it from the ledger. And would love to answer any questions at this point from the community.
Okay, so Pam had asked, is there an accommodation for dual signatures?
Dual approvals. Love that
sorry,
question. It's come up a few times. The short answer is no, comma, not yet. It's one of the features we're planning to roll out in 2020. One of the elements where I'm really proud of our team. So all the folks behind me that you don't see today, they are grinding away at our product roadmap. Again, driven by all this amazing industry feedback of, hey, what about this? I need this to get resolved. Cross-border payments. We want to be able to better support Canada, right? So all these features are coming in, and fortunately our team's amazingly working away at it. A couple of features I just want to highlight that we're planning to release this year: NetSuite integration. So if you have any larger clients, we'll be rolling that out. However, given that it's coming up on tax time, the key feature that I find a lot of our tax folks are excited about is the W-9 aggregation 1099 automation workflow. So just imagine every year where tax time comes up and it's really hunting season. You got to track these vendors down, get them to send in the signed W-9, because if they don't, you and your client are on the hook. Well, we're actually rolling out a way where we're going to automate the e-signature authentication so that way you can encryptically store their W-9 on file. So that way it does come tax time, you have the ability to auto-file this 1099s. So all of that pain, our hope in this product release will get that resolved. So be on the lookout for that feature as well.
Awesome. Okay, so then Lori's asked, first, is this available in Canada? Second, can both bank accounts and credit cards be set up as payment methods?
Awesome questions, Lori. Currently, we only support US-based clients. So we have some Canadian bookkeepers who support US-based clients, but unless the actual entity is US-based, we're not able to support them quite yet. And regarding the credit cards, we don't currently support that as a payment processing. However, we do have plans to. And just to give you a sneak peek about how we're thinking about it, as you may know, on the bank feed, it shows the credit charge and the credit fee as one line item. So when you're doing reconciliation, it can get a little bit messy because they're really two items combined as one. When we plan on rolling that out, we're going to have that parsed out. So it'll show the actual charge and the actual credit fee on two line items. because that's more accountant friendly, which is really a driving principle in all of our product development that we roll out. Awesome questions though.
Perfect. Okay. And then Deb has asked, does this work with QB
QBD?
Desktop? Yeah.
So we have chatted with Intuit on the development side. And from what we have gathered, it seems like the bulk of their focus is to drive folks to the cloud, which is where the majority of their resources are going. So in line with that, we've followed suit really. So at this point, we do not have an integration with QBD. And as of right now, we don't have a QBD integration slotted in. So unfortunately, that does exclude some folks. However, given our resource appropriation, we're really trying to accommodate where we feel like the trends in the markets are heading in the future.
If I can just kind of add some of my thoughts on that.
Please.
Yeah, because, yes, absolutely. QuickBooks is going to be trying to push people to the cloud. Absolutely. However, as somebody who works in the books, there are some clients. I still have one client on desktop, and the client that I have on desktop is a larger, more complex client. Mm-hmm. So those larger clients, I would think it's probably very still quite prevalent in the industry that our larger clients we're not referring QB over to because they're not a good fit to. And our larger clients are probably who your target clients really are because they can go into your packages. So just some little feedback. They might want to kind of rethink that, because if they want to go for the big spenders, the ones that they can really help, they're not going to be on QBO. QBO is not, they're just not set up for that at this point. Definitely. So I don't know if everybody else agrees. But yeah, it's just like we've got QB Desktop Enterprise, which is for, again, the larger companies. So
absolutely.
Just food for thought.
We always welcome the feedback. Tanya, please send out my email address to your community. My email is always open for feedback. We truly view it as a gift. Constructive, affirmative, keep it coming. It literally shapes the way that we think about the product. We view you as the expert within the industry. So we think of this more as an alliance that we're pairing with you as the community to build something that actually addresses the problem. So please keep that feedback coming. Yeah.
Awesome. Okay. So then Lori said, is there an ETA for a Canadian rollout?
Not yet. One thing that we're trying to be very deliberate on is if we have information, we try to be transparent. And if we don't, we do not want to make empty promises. So as of right now, we do not have expectations for a Canadian rollout yet. However, I love Canada. Some people have actually told me I have a Canadian accent, even though I'm from Phoenix, Arizona. I take that as a compliment. So,
no, but it is on the roadmap, though. That's correct. It's still on the roadmap.
We like to think of it as international expansion rather than so it's U.S. only right now. And then how do we think about supporting clients all over the U.S., given that there are lots of businesses that we'd love to support? Yeah.
Okay. And then Deb has asked, Woodward just did a webinar, the desktop is not dead.
Good to know.
And agrees with me, absolutely. And that's it. Again, it's the larger clients or the more complex clients that I would think probably your actual ideal client is probably desktop or enterprise. Yeah, Pam's nodding. She agrees. Excuse me. All right. So any other questions? It looks like that was, short webinar.
Yeah, and I think that really goes to the point that we try to hammer home. We wanted to build intuitive, user-friendly software. It shouldn't take 2 hours to demo something that's supposed to provide quick value. Right. So as folks are getting ramped up on Routable, they continue to let us know, after using it for 10 minutes, I actually feel like I know my way around. And it catches people off guard because they're so used to this kind of archaic, sluggish, complex, convoluted software that they have to maneuver through, and they jump into Routable and think, this actually makes sense. It's refreshing, the true customer-driven approach of developing the product. Yeah.
Awesome. Perfect. All right. Well, I guess if there's no more questions, then we will call it a day. The recording will go out. I will include David's email address in case you guys want to reach out for him for any questions or feedback or whatnot. Absolutely.
Wonderful. Well, I appreciate everyone joining for today, and definitely please reach out if any questions do come up.
Awesome. And thanks so much for your time to join us, everybody. And thank you so much for your time today, David.
Absolutely. Y'all take care.
Take care. Thanks. Take care, everybody. Bye.